Hey everybody, you're watching the Christiana 321. I am the Christiana, and today we are going to go over all of the books that I read in 2023. It was not as many as I would have liked. I probably put it in the title. I read 28 books, which is 2 more than I read in 2022. 2022, I read 26 books. 2021, I think I read 12. It was a very small number. And then 2020, no wait, 2020 I read 12 books. 2021, I read like 56. I don't know. Actually, I've got my list here in front of me. So yeah, 2020, I read 12 books. 2021, I read 56 books. 2022, I read 26 books, and 2023, I read 28 books. And I started 2 more that I just didn't finish. I was really hoping to get that nice 30 number, but there's too much other stuff going on, and I didn't get to read as much as I had planned on. Anyway, we're not talking about the books that I didn't read, we're talking about the books that I did read, or the books that I finished. And I'm just going to go in order-ish that I read them. I don't use Storygraph, Goodreads, anything like that for tracking my reading. I just have a notes app in my phone, which is not the most efficient way of tracking, let me tell you. But yeah, I figured go through, give my thoughts, feelings. Do I even remember reading some of these? Answer, probably not. I've not looked at this list. But so whenever I put a finished book in my list, I just put the month that I finished it. So, like, if I finished multiple ones in a month, I don't remember what order, or I don't have here what order I read them in. Anyway, and because I don't use Storygraph or Goodreads or anything like that, I don't have any more data, like number of pages read, overall mood, or anything, which makes me want to use an online tracker like that. But there's so many out there, and Storygraph, I think it would be the one that I'm most drawn to. I tried Goodreads in the past, and it was just overwhelming trying to keep track of it. I only want to know, like, when I start a book and when I finish it. I don't want to be tracking pages throughout. You know what I mean? Anywho. Alright, let's get... Jeez, I'm the worst at introductions. I'm sorry. So, do you track your reading using one of those apps? Which one do you use, and would you recommend, or do you have some other way of tracking it? I started off the year, I was going to track it in an Excel spreadsheet, but I don't want to do that. I needed it to be on my phone so that I could track it. And then, yeah, I could use Google Sheets. I've got Google Sheets. I've got Excel on my phone. I could do it on my phone. Focus. But yeah, it was a lot to keep track of. And then 2, we've lost our remote at John's house. He's got several remotes, and I'm running out of places to look. So I have a feeling it's one of those things where one of us had it in our hands when we left the living room, and like ADHD style brain just set it down somewhere. I need to fill that water bowl. ADHD style brain thinking over here. Had it in our hands and walked out of the room and set it down somewhere. Where is the weirdest place that you've ever found your remote? I've checked the freezer, I've checked the fridge, not there. But if you have other ideas, I'm thinking it might be in the garage or in the basement. Or I don't think it got wrapped in any Christmas presents, because all of the presents that were wrapped here have been opened. But The last time I know that we had it was before we left for Christmas. But I feel like we had it since then as well. So it might be in luggage. We would have noticed if we brought it with us on a trip. But let's get to the books, alright? So in January, I finished one book. I read Daisy Jones and the Six. I have not seen the show. If you've seen it, would you recommend? But it is a, like, faux, like, supposed to be writing a book about this famous band from the 70s. I don't remember the details. But this famous band and how they rose to fame and then broke up and everything. But it's done in that style that you would do, like, journalism, a journalism kind of book, and with interviews and different people telling the stories. It was really well done. I did read it as an audiobook, which I think was an excellent choice because they had different voice actors for each of the characters as they were, you know, telling their different stories. Great book. It is in the Taylor Jenkins Reid universe. I don't think that I read any more by her. That was my first Taylor Jenkins Reid book, and I haven't read any more of them. I really want to read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, though. Then in February, I read 2 books. I had this idea that I was gonna, like, after, I think in March I read 3, I had this idea that, you know, each month I would read one more than the last, after I saw the pattern forming. Did not work. Anyway, so in February I read Love, Pamela, the Pamela Anderson memoir, autobiography kind of thing. It was really good. It's really interesting hearing her perspective. I enjoyed it a lot. I believe this was also an audiobook because I can hear her in my head reading it. But yeah, well done. I don't have a whole lot of things to add to that thought. She went through a lot of stuff that I didn't know about. And there were a few other books like that, the like memoir type books of celebrities that I read this year. That was kind of the theme. It was like, wow. I grew up in the generation of feeling like celebrities, they're just like us. And they are, in that they go through some pretty rough times just like we do. But also that they hide the really sucky bits from social media and from the public eye, just like we do. Then I read Where the Crawdads Sing, which is a murder mystery kind of book about the Deep South and some of the different class politics that go on or went on. They definitely still go on, but not quite like this. Also, did not watch that movie or TV show. I don't remember what it was. Excellent book. I could kind of predict the ending, not quite, like it still got me. So for a murder mystery kind of thing, I'd give it a 4 out of 5, 4.5 out of 5. It was very good. Oh, Killers of a Certain Age was really good. Killers of a Certain Age by Deanna Raybourn. I definitely recommend. I don't know if it was part of a series, but if it was, I would definitely read the other ones. Should I actually check on that? I don't think that it's a standalone novel. It's about this group of assassins that are like grandma age, and but they, you know, they were assassins their whole lives. They grew up in the agency and everything. And then one day, it seems like the agency might be trying to kill them. And so they're trying to figure out why they're not being allowed to just retire peacefully. I haven't read anything like that before. I very much enjoyed it, even though I forgot the name of the book. It was funny. It was just really different. I might give that a 5 out of 5. I don't like rating books, so if I'm gonna rate it, I'm just gonna usually tell you I recommend or don't recommend. But I definitely recommend this one. There's some violence, but all in all, really good. Ugh. So we're in March, by the way. Killers of a Certain Age was March. But also in March, I read Normal People, which everybody told me was amazing. It was so insightful. It was such a good book. No, it was boring. I did not enjoy it. It reminds me of the Ethan Hawke and I forget the girl's name series of movies about midnight, or like before midnight, after midnight, during midnight, whatever it was. And it's just supposed to be normal people chatting on a train, and you're just following them for a certain amount of time, and nothing happens. That's how I felt about Normal People. I don't know if that's a good, because I don't remember the details of it. I just remember after I finished reading it being like, well, that did absolutely nothing for me. No offense. I don't even remember who wrote it. Very famous person. Wrote several other books. Then I read The Postman Always Rings Twice, also in March. A very short novella. It was written in the 1920s or the 1930s. And it was not updated for the times. There are several movies that have come out, or I think they've made it into a movie twice. Basically, this dude's not a good dude, gets a job, falls in love with his boss's wife, and then they hatch a plan of how they could be together. And he's like, yeah, he's just not a good dude. It's entertaining though, if you can stomach the racism and just remember that it was a different time. It's a different time. And sometimes, you know, if you're reading older books, there's just casual racism. Anyway, I don't remember. I feel like there were several races that they, the author, the narrator, did not think highly of. But the two that came up a lot were Greeks and Mexicans. But yeah, so like I said, I don't know that I would highly recommend, but for a quick, fun, fun is a weird word. I forget what they called it, like dark romance. It was weird. I don't not recommend. Then in April, I read 2 books. I read Hunting Party, which was also a murder mystery. I read a lot of murder mysteries this year. I don't know if I should read into that. But I read Hunting Party by Lucy Foley. I think that's her name. Which it takes place in Scotland on New Year's Eve. I started it around New Year's Eve and then I finished it in April. It was good. I did not see the twist coming. a group of friends go to the Scottish Highlands to celebrate New Year's, and somebody dies, and there's a lot of stuff that happens, and a lot of like friendship drama from, back when they all met in college, and now they're, 30 somethings. I don't remember the details, and I don't want to give away too much because I would recommend. Maybe like a 4 out of 5. Lower than. Oh, it's more fun than Where the Crawdads Sing. See, it's a different type of book. Like, they're both murder mysteries, but Hunting Party is definitely more fun. Where the Crawdads Sing is more serious. It's still fun. It's still interesting. But as far as murder mysteries go, oh my gosh, you guys get what I mean. Then, also in April, I read Then She Was Gone, which I'm going to need to look up. I think I remember. Oh, Then She Was Gone is a murder mystery. A kid disappears, and it's unclear if she's murdered. I think at some point you do find out, but I only very vaguely remember some of the details. I feel like I was disappointed in some of the twists. I didn't feel like it was telegraphed enough to be figure-outable. Like, sometimes I don't see the twist coming, but as they explain it, I'm like, oh yeah, no, I remember that. That was weird. Why didn't I pick up on that? Kind of thing. But if I remember correctly, this one wasn't like that. It was like, oh, there was just a lot of stuff that you didn't tell us. And it would be impossible for anybody to just assume. But it was really interesting. It did keep me guessing. There were a lot of red herrings. It was very intriguing as I went along. I don't remember all the details, though, of how it ended, so I don't know how much I would recommend it. 3.5. I also read Oliver Twist by Charlie Dickens. Old Chuck. It was fine. I had a hard time following it. I did just keep on thinking of Oliver and Company. Is that Disney that did that one? With the cats and the dogs. They were basically doing Oliver Twist, but a slightly happier version. I did enjoy it. If you enjoy that genre of literature, it was a good one. I did find it a little bit hard to follow all the different characters. I read this one in an audiobook, which was probably a mistake, just because then it makes it really hard for me to follow all of the characters. Then we get to May, which is when I did the 7 books in 7 days challenge that I failed. The link is somewhere. I will, at the end of this video, I'll have a playlist linked of all my bookish videos, and it'll be in that playlist. There's not a whole lot of them. But so I won't go into a whole lot of details about these ones. You can go back and watch that video. But quickly, In the Village That Is Not Burning Down was a poetry book that I did not enjoy. Agnes Gray by Anne Bronte. Delightful, but I also like that genre of fiction. The Bronte sisters, Jane Austen, them, and it fit very well into that. It kind of makes me think of the quick romances that we have, like rom-com kind of romance books that we do now, except there's way more of them now, I'm assuming, because it's a lot easier to produce books in the modern day. But it might also be survivorship bias. Maybe there were a lot of other books back then, but only a handful of them are still talked about. I don't know, but it was good. It was cute. And that's all I got to say about that. I also read First Love by a Russian author. Turgenev, maybe? Tchaikovsky? No, that's, Anyway, it was fine. I don't remember it very much. It was fine. The Hen Who Dreamed She Could Fly. Oh my gosh. Loved it. If you've ever struggled with being a mom, like becoming a mother, and gone down that path, then it might be a challenging read because the main character is a hen, but she struggles with that, with the fact that she laid eggs her whole life and none of them became a chick. And the story is about her time after the farmer no longer wants her for egg laying because she's not doing it as much because she's depressed about not having any chicks to look after. And so then she, like, it's her life after that moment. It's a short one, but it was so well done. One Little Mistake. Didn't like it. Not gonna recommend. How It Ends was pretty good. A solid like 3.7 out of 5. I wouldn't not recommend it, but it was just kind of junk food as far as books go. It didn't give me a whole lot. It was a murder mystery, sort of. I don't think anybody actually died. But somebody was attacked and almost died, and then she spends the rest of the book trying to figure out who done it. I didn't finish any books in June, which was upsetting because I had a goal to finish at least one book every month. So then we move on to July, and I read Finley Donovan Is Killing It, which is where a author accidentally finds herself in the middle of a real-life murder mystery while she's struggling to write a book about, I don't remember if it was originally supposed to be a murder mystery thing, but, you know, the premise was a little bit, obvious? I don't know the right word, but somebody writing a book about somebody struggling to write a book and then finding themselves in a plot for a book. I don't know. Maybe meta. But it was fun. It was cute. If you can get past the initial setup, I did enjoy following her figuring out how to be a detective, and there were some moments that were a little bit ham-fisted, I guess, which, yeah, just, it's fine. Call it a 3.7. As You Wish, which was written by Carrie Elwes. The prince from The Princess Bride. No, not the prince. The stable boy from Princess Bride. Dread Pirate Roberts. Sorry, spoiler. And it was very cute. It was fun. And he told a lot of behind the scenes stories. He got some of the other people who, I read it as an audiobook, and so he got a lot of his friends, people who worked on the movie with him, to write parts of the book and then read it for the audiobook, which was really sweet. It was, yeah, I enjoyed it, and it felt a little bit like a little bit like fan service, but that's what the book was, you know? It was a book about being on this movie set, and so he included, you know, quotes from the movie and lots of bits where I could very specifically visualize the different scenes that he was talking about and everything. So it was good. It wasn't super deep or anything like that. But if you are a fan of Princess Bride, then I would recommend. Then, moving on to August, I finished Maraldo, which was a delightful book. It was funny. It was more of a series of short stories about this guy who, this was like the 60s, 70s in Italy, and he was struggling. He was on the struggle bus, and every time he tried to do something good to help himself or help his family, something went wrong. I would very much enjoy a Mr. Bean style sitcom of Maraldo and his life. I started that book though as part of the 7 Books in 7 Days challenge, and it took me until August to finish it because it was a bit of a strange one, but I would recommend it. Then in September I read Last Girl Gone, which is another murder mystery. Basically a back in the day, a long time ago, a bunch of... Sorry, I talked too long and then the camera turned off. So Last Girl Gone was about how back in the day, a bunch of girls went missing, and then it seemed like something similar was happening again. I don't know. It was confusing. I don't remember the details. I do remember I didn't like the twist at the end. Like, I saw most of the twist coming. I'll say that. But there was a certain element of it that I didn't think was well done. I didn't like it. It kind of demonized a person because they had a specific trauma in their past that led to them having I don't know how to describe it without giving it away. Basically, it demonized a marginalized person for no reason. Like, this person had a lot of trauma in their past, and then it's like, and they are secretly I don't know how to describe it without giving it away. But I did not appreciate it. It was just kind of like shoved in there at the end. It was for that reason I wouldn't recommend it. I didn't like the last little bit of the twist. Maybe a 2 out of 5. Before, like, if that element hadn't been there, I would have given it a 4, maybe even a 4.5, but it just really rubbed me the wrong way. Then in October, I read The Secret Agent in an audiobook, and I can tell you very little about that book. It was not a good choice to listen to it in an audiobook format for me. I just ended up tuning a lot of it out because I don't know what it was about the audiobook narrator, but I love the sound of his voice, but I was not listening to a single thing that he said, if that makes sense. I don't know how to describe it other than that. So, you know, give him the benefit of the doubt. 3 out of 5. It's probably a good book. I don't know. Then moving on to November, I started reading a little bit more again. As when after my the class that I was being the TA for had ended, and so I had some more free time in the evenings. So in November, I read Fred Rogers, The Last Interview, which was a series of interviews and stories about Mr. Rogers, and it was so sweet. It was so touching. Mr. Rogers was a huge part of my childhood. I watched him probably far too long, but it was, yeah, it was sweet hearing his ideas and his thoughts and how he got to be where he was. I've seen lots of, factoids online from different people claiming stuff about him, and it turns out a lot of the ones I've read not true, or at least were not important in his life, because the book covered most of his life, just the different interviews, talked about where he started and some of his, just different background things about him, and it was so good. I would highly recommend it. It was another really short read. I think I read it over a 2-hour plane ride, maybe 3 hours, and then a little bit more after we landed, kind of thing. But so good. Also in November, I read Beowolf, which was a classic that gets referenced all the time. I've never seen the movie, but so I wanted to get that, check that off the list so that I could participate in conversations about it. It was fine. I don't know if it was worth the hype, but also I'm not typically into that genre. Old Greek. It wasn't Greek. Old mythology. I prefer the rewrites, the modern rewrites, even if it's still set in olden times. Anyway, it was good. Beowulf goes on adventures, kills some monsters, and dies a hero. The end. Also in November, I read The Woman in Me by Britney Spears. I was a little... So, if you've followed Britney's struggles in the press, dating back to... her and Justin Timberlake is the first time I became aware of her outside of her music. But she's gone through a lot, and so she talks about some of those details. She also talks about a lot of the stuff that she went through with the conservatorship and her father, and much like the Pamela Anderson book, there is a lot of details that were kind of upsetting, kind of disturbing that anybody had to go through that, and that people like... I'll say it, people like her father, exist in the world, and some of her other family members that either participated or just stood by and watched, kind of thing. But it gave me some good insight in at least how she sees her story. I'm sure that same with Pamela, there are two sides to every story, but I think that it was told in a really insightful way, and told me things about her that I had no idea that she was going through. Alright, also in December, that was November. Moving on to December, I finished 5 books, which was, I think, my best month other than May. I finished The Cat Who Saved Books. I know, you guys, just so proud of me, right? This is another one that I started back in May, if you've been following my channel and if you watch the book-related videos. I did finally finish it. And it was so sweet. I took so long reading it because it was sweet. It was a fun little tale. But also the way that it was written, you could kind of split it up into several short stories. If you want to read it without any spoilers, don't look at the chapter titles, because it gives away one of the twists at the end, which I don't know why they did that. I don't know, maybe it was something that got lost in translation kind of thing, I don't know. It was translated from Japanese, but it was a sweet book. I would put it almost as a middle grades book, because it had kind of, very obvious life lessons. It was very sweet. It made a lot of references, though, to specific books out there, mostly just by title and author, but you might make more sense the more well-read you are in kind of classic literature. But I want to say they had some modern classics in there as well, but it was very cute. It was very sweet. I loved the ending. Give it 4.5 out of 5. Just because it was a little bit young. That's not the book's fault, that's my fault. I'm just old. I also read Love and Work by Marcus Buckingham, which is a book about how to find red threads in everything that you do. Red threads being, your life is made up of a lot of different colored threads, things that you like, things that you don't like, things that you do because they're sustaining, because they're fulfilling, because, whatever. So the red threads are the things that you really love. Could be friendships, it could be, for me it's pizza. My cats, love those things. But in my workplace, it's whenever I get to feel like I'm really helping someone. But so Love and Work has you think about that for yourself, but also the people around you, and how you can create an environment where people get to explore their red threads and get to incorporate those into their work as much as possible, and where people feel comfortable talking about that sort of thing. It also talks about the idea of work-life balance, where work is part of your life. You do it for about half of your waking hours most of the week. So trying to just separate the two doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You should have joy and life in your workplace. It's a very long, short summary. I do recommend it. I want to read some more of his books. He's got some good ideas. I don't agree with everything he says, though. So don't take my recommendation of the book to mean that I sign off on the whole thing. As with any professional development book, you take it with a grain of salt. Take what is useful to you, and the things that aren't useful, you can just leave them. Maybe think about why the author thought that they were useful, but if they're not useful to you, they're not useful to you. Anyway, then I also read The Secret History of Food, which is a series of essays about how different food became popular, became part of culture. There's a lot of interesting facts in there that I didn't know. But I really enjoyed reading it. I read this as an audiobook. It's one of, whenever we were doing traveling around the holidays, John does not like audiobooks, and so this was one of the few ones that I could get him to agree to. He couldn't listen to it for very long at a time. It was interesting. I wouldn't rate it super high, maybe 3.5. If you are into nonfiction essays about that sort of thing, then you would probably like it. It was very well done as far as it was pretty funny. But it was also just really long and dry in parts and kind of fine. I also read 4 Quartets by T.S. Eliot, maybe? Didn't like it. Guess what? It was 4 poems. Some of them were better than the others, but I didn't get it. I don't know what he was talking about. I don't know what the context was. I don't know what was going on. Did not enjoy. I've got to stop reading poetry that isn't like an epic poem telling a story, or that doesn't have some way for me to know the context. Could I have looked it up? Yep. Did I? No. And then I also read The Christmas Guest, which was a novella set at Christmas time, which is why I prioritized it. But it was a murder mystery at Christmas time. It was a novella, so there wasn't a lot of character development. There wasn't a lot of like extraneous details. There wasn't a lot of room for red herrings, because it was a very short book. But it was split up into 2 parts. And so I guessed one of the twists. There were 2 twists. I guessed one of them, didn't guess the other. So I would recommend. I'll give it a 4.2. It was good. If you give it a little bit of grace for being a novella, that it, if it had been a novel and they had put in all of the extra details, then I think I don't know, maybe the twist wouldn't have got me so much, because they would have telegraphed that more. But they would have been able to put in more red herrings. They would have been able to do a little bit more with it, to make it more difficult to guess the first, well, the twist that I did guess. Anyway, so those were all of the books that I read last year. Some great ones, some not so great ones. Hopefully you found some of this interesting. Maybe you got a book recommendation out of this, or a book that you're going to read that now you're not going to, because it was just forgettable. I do love audiobooks. Anyway, I've got a couple of other books that I'm reading right now. If you saw my thing where I made my New Year's resolutions, I'm reading at least 30 minutes every day. So I've got 2 different books that I'm reading right now. One is an audiobook and one is a physical book. So depending on what I can do reading-wise that day, I've got something. Sometimes I just have to listen to the audiobook while I'm driving or walking or whatever, because that's just the whole time that I have for reading that day. Anyway, this video has gone on way too long. Thanks for tuning in. I'm going to try and stick to a schedule of Sundays and Thursdays. I'm saying it out loud, so you know it won't happen. But that's all. Have a little bit of faith. It's a new year. New me. I'm going to stick to that. Anyway, thanks for watching. You're super cute, and I'm just so flattered that you chose to watch this. Leave me a comment, like, subscribe. Let's be best friends. And yeah, give me some good recommendations for this year. I've got a lot of books that are already on my list, so don't tell John that I'm thinking about buying some more books. But I can get them from the library. That's not buying books. Anyway, what are your book recommendations for this year? Yeah, I'll see you in the comments. Bye.